A settler widow, alone for 5 years. A giant Apache warrior appearing at her door as the sun bleeds into the dust. He doesn't ask. He doesn't barter. He orders, "Pack your things and come with me." This isn't a kidnapping. This isn't a raid. This is a rescue. But the woman holding the rifle doesn't know it. The man who appears to be her greatest threat is her only salvation. And the secret that connects them, a secret buried by her dead husband, is about to shatter the silence of the Arizona desert and set the territory ablaze. The silence of the Arizona territory was not an empty thing. It was a physical weight, heavy with heat, dust, and the memory of violence. For 5 years, Nancy McDowell had carried that weight alone. Her ranch, which she and Thomas had called Clear Creek, was now just the ranch. The creek had run dry 2 summers ago, and the only thing clear was the hard, blue emptiness of the sky. It was a homestead of ghosts, bleached bones, and stubbornness. Nancy was stubborn. A woman had to be, to survive this long past her husband's death. Thomas had been gone 5 years, killed in a rock slide up in the Dragoons while prospecting, they'd said. 5 years of mending her own fences, shooting her own rattlesnakes, and staring down the occasional, curious drifter who thought widow meant easy target. She was mending a split-rail fence, her hands, raw and cracked, working the leather bindings, when she felt it. It wasn't a sound. It was a change in the pressure of the air. The buzz of the locusts seemed to hitch. The heat shimmer on the horizon pulsed. She'd learned to trust this feeling. It meant she was no longer alone. Nancy didn't snatch at the Winchester leaning against the fence post. That was a greenhorn's move. A fast movement was a threatened movement. Instead, she finished wrapping the leather, tied it off with a firm pull, and slowly, deliberately, straightened her back. He was standing on the porch of her small adobe house, 50 yards away. He hadn't been there a minute ago. He had made no sound on the packed earth yard or the wooden porch steps. He simply was, and he was a giant. She had seen Apache before, usually in small, weary bands being marched to the reservation, or from a great distance. They were wiry, tough, and lean. This man was built on a different scale. He was well over 6 feet, with a breadth of shoulder that blocked the light from her doorway. He wore buckskin leggings and a simple breechcloth, his chest and arms bare, the copper skin scarred but pristine. He was not starved. He was not weary. He was a force of nature. His black hair hung loose past his shoulders. A single hawk feather was tied at the scalp lock. He carried no rifle, only a knife at his hip and a bow, unstrung, in his hand. He was watching her, not her face. He was watching her hands, inches from the Winchester. "Ma'am," Nancy said. Her voice was a rasp. She cleared her throat. "You're on private land." The giant Apache did not move. His face was a mask of hard plains, unreadable. He could have been 30 or 50. His stillness was more unnerving than a war cry. Nancy's heart was a trapped bird against her ribs. She finally grasped the rifle, the wood smooth and familiar. She didn't aim it. Not yet. "Water's in the barrel by the side," she said, nodding toward it. "Take what you need and move on. I don't have truck with travelers." The man took 1 step off the porch, the wood groaning under his weight. He walked toward her, not with a warrior's lope, but with a steady, measured pace. He stopped 10 feet away, close enough for her to see the dark, obsidian depth of his eyes. He spoke. His voice was not the guttural caricature she'd heard from cowboys. It was a low, resonant bass, his English perfect, accented only by its precision. My name is not important. Nancy gripped the rifle tighter. Then your business isn't either. Last time. He looked at her, truly looked at her, and she felt stripped bare. Her 5 years of loneliness, her grit, her fear, all laid out for him. You are Nancy McDowell. Your husband was Thomas McDowell. A cold spike of fear lanced through her. What do you know of my husband? I know he is dead, the man said, and I know you will be too, if you stay here. Is that a threat? She snapped, the rifle coming up just a few inches. It is a fact, he replied, unmoved. He took a step closer, and she flinched, but he only pointed, not at her, but at the house. You will pack your things, food, water, your rifle and bullets. You will leave the rest. Nancy's blood ran cold, then hot. The audacity. After 5 years of fighting off the land, the isolation, and the coyotes, she would not be ordered by anyone, least of all this specter. I will not, she said, her voice shaking, but full of iron. This is my home. I'll die on this land before I'm ordered off it. The giant Apache looked at her, his expression softening for just a fraction of a second, a flicker of what might have been pity, or perhaps respect. That is what I am here to prevent, he said. He took one more step, crossing the invisible line she had drawn. My name is Nachit, and you will do as I say. Pack your things and come with me. Nancy didn't just stand her ground. She became ground, rooted in the baked hard dirt she'd fought to keep. The Winchester came up, the butt pressed firm against her shoulder, the barrel level with the center of Nachit's broad chest. One more step, she warned, her voice low, and I'll see how much of a giant you are when you're on the ground. Nachit stopped. He didn't look at the rifle. He kept his eyes on hers. The bullet will go through me. It will make a loud noise. It will not stop them from coming. Stop who? What them? Nancy spat. You think I haven't heard that before? The Comanches are coming. The bandits are coming. It's always someone coming, and it's always a lie to scare a lone woman. This is not a lie, Nachit said. His patience was as vast and terrifying as the desert itself. 3 days ago, I found the tracks. 5 riders, shod horses, heavy with ammunition. They are not drifters. They are not cavalry. They are hunters. Hunters? What are they hunting out here? There's nothing but dust and lizards. They are hunting you, Nancy McDowell. The rifle barrel wavered, just for a second. You're insane. Why me? I have nothing. No money, no stock worth taking. You have something, Nachit countered. Or rather, they believe you have something. Something Thomas McDowell left behind. The mention of her husband's name again, spoken by this man, felt like a violation. Thomas left nothing. A collapsed prospector's tunnel and a widow. That was his legacy? His legacy is 5 men, riding hard. They passed through Tucson. A man named Dutch Malone was in the Salty Dog Saloon, asking questions. Asking about the widow at Clear Creek. The widow who's lived alone for 5 years, untouched. Nancy's mind raced. She knew of the Salty Dog. She knew of Tucson. The names meant something. I don't know any Dutch Malone. He knows you, Nachit said, and he rides with a man you will fear. He rides with Silas Croft. The name landed in the silence and did nothing. It was just a name. I don't know him, Nancy said, her voice betraying the first crack of uncertainty. The rifle was heavy. He knew Thomas, Nachiti said, and this time his words were sharp. He knew him very, very well. Nancy's world, which had been small but stable, tilted. That's a lie. Thomas was a rancher, a prospector. He was a simple, good man. He was not simple, Nachit said, his voice dropping. And good is a word that changes with the light. You have lived a lie for 5 years, widow. The rock slide that killed your husband? It was a story, a good one, but not the true one. Get out, Nancy whispered, her knuckles white on the rifle. Get off my land. Silas Croft will not ask you to leave. He will burn this house with you in it, Nachit said, his voice rising in intensity for the first time. He believes Thomas McDowell stole from him. He believes Thomas hid it here, and he is coming to collect. Stole what? She cried, the desperation in her own voice scaring her. Look at this place. What could he have possibly stolen? Nachiti stared at her, and she realized he wasn't just a threat. He was an oracle. He was the thunderhead on the horizon, warning of the lightning. Thomas was Croft's man, Nachiti said, the words falling like hammer blows. His partner, the prospecting trips, the supply runs to Tucson, he was their eyes. He gathered information on payroll wagons, on land office shipments. He was a thief, Nancy, a very successful one. Nancy's legs gave out. She didn't fall, but she stumbled back, landing hard on the bench by her front door. The rifle lay useless across her lap. No, she breathed. No, he loved me. He built this house. He built this house with blood money, Nachit said, not cruelly, but as a statement of fact. And he broke with them. 5 years ago, he stole something from them, something more valuable than gold, and he disappeared. They thought he was dead. Until Dutch Malone heard a story about a miracle widow who never left her post. He realized the rock slide was a lie. He realized Thomas had a reason to stay hidden and a place to hide. Here, with you. Nancy looked at her hands, the hands that had buried her husband in the small plot behind the house after he'd been brought back from the mountains. But that was the story. What was the truth? He died of a fever, the rock slide. It weakened him. He came home and he died. I buried him. Then you buried a liar, Nachiti said. But you will not pay for his lies. Not today. He stepped past her, into her home. It was an invasion, absolute and total. She was too numb to stop him. He scanned the small, clean room. One bed, one hearth, a simple table. Where is it? He murmured, more to himself than to her. Where is what? Nancy said, following him, her body on autopilot. What he stole. Croft is not a man who comes for money. He is a man who comes for power. It is a book, a ledger, something that proves his crimes. Nancy looked around her sparse home. There is no ledger. I have his Bible. I have our tintypes. Nachiti's eyes scanned the room, looking for anything out of place. He was a predator, but not one hunting her. He was hunting the threat. He told me, Nachiti said, if I ever came here, to look under the angel's eye. Nancy's breath caught, hanging from a leather thong over the cold hearth, where a fire hadn't burned in a year, was a small, crudely carved wooden angel. Thomas had carved it for her their first year here. He said it would watch over them. Nachite, without asking, reached up his massive hand and gently, almost reverently, took the angel from its hook. Nancy watched, her world dissolving. He turned it over. In the back, a small panel, almost invisible, was set into the wood. He used the tip of his knife to pry it open. It wasn't a ledger. It was a small, leather-bound diary. Nancy took it with a trembling hand. She opened it. It was Thomas's handwriting, but it wasn't notes about the ranch. It was names, dates, shipments. payouts, and at the top of every other page, the name, Silas Croft. The silence of the room was absolute. Then from the desert, a far-off sound. A sound that was not the wind. A sound of hoofbeats. Distant, but coming closer. Nachite looked at her, his eyes black and urgent. "They are here," he said. "The wind is with them. They will be here by morning." He snatched the diary from her hand, tucked it into his waistband, and grabbed her arm. His grip was like a steel trap. "I am not asking, Nancy McDowell. I am telling. We leave. Now." The world had compressed into a single point of terror. The diary. The name. The hoofbeats. Nancy was paralyzed, not by the man holding her, but by the ghost who had just risen from the grave. Thomas. Her Thomas. A liar. A thief. I can't," she stammered, looking at the house. Her home. It was all she had. "This is not a home. It is a tomb," Nachite said, his voice a low growl. He pulled her, hard, toward the door. "They are not coming to talk. They are coming to dig. And once they have the book, they will bury you beside it." "The book!" Nancy was still processing. "How did you know? How did you know about the angel?" Nachite was already moving, his eyes scanning the homestead. He was all efficiency. He grabbed her canteen from the peg, checked its weight, and threw it at her. "Fill it. From the well. Now." He moved to her small, lean-to stable. Her horse, a tough little buckskin mare named Grits, nickered nervously. "You didn't answer me," Nancy cried, her paralysis breaking into a hot, confused rage. She ran to the well, her hands shaking so badly she fumbled the rope. "How did you know my husband?" Nachite emerged from the stable, throwing her best saddle onto the mare. He worked with a speed that was shocking for a man his size. "I knew him at the end," Nachite said, his back to her as he cinched the saddle. "He was not killed by a rock slide. He was not killed by Silas Croft. He was killed by guilt." Nancy stopped, the bucket halfway up. "He fled Croft," Nachite continued, his voice tight. "He faked the rock slide and ran into the dragoons. He had the ledger. He thought he could use it to buy his freedom, to buy protection. But the desert does not care for such plans." He walked back to her, taking the rope from her unresisting hands and pulling the bucket up with one effortless motion. He filled the canteen, then another he'd pulled from his own pack. He was sick, a fever. He had been living on snakes and poison water for a month. "My people, my band, we found him. He was delirious." You helped him?" "We do not leave men to die, even white men," Nachite said. "We brought him to our camp. He was too far gone. But in his fever he spoke. He spoke of his wife. He spoke of the angel. He spoke of Silas Croft." Nancy's knees buckled. Nachite caught her by the arm, his grip the only solid thing in her spinning world. He confessed to you?" "He confessed to the sky." "I listened," Nachite said. "He was afraid, not for his soul, but for yours. He knew Croft would never stop looking. He knew that one day they would find this place." He pushed her toward the house. A rifle, bullets, food, nothing else. Nancy moved like a sleepwalker. She went to the chest at the foot of her bed. She pulled out the box of 4440 cartridges. She grabbed a sack and filled it with jerky, hardtack, and a bag of dried apples. "Thomas, did he?" She had to ask. "Did he say?" "He said he was sorry," Nachite said from the doorway. "He said he had left a shadow on the only good thing he ever knew. He made me promise. 'Protect her from the shadow,' he said. 'Do not let it touch her.' From the west, a column of smoke thin and black, began to rise. Nachiti had seen it. "Scouts!" he hissed. "They're burning the outmarkers. They're closer than I thought." A sob, dry and raw, tore from Nancy's throat. Not for her home, for the lie, for the good, simple man she had loved, who had never existed. I buried him," she whispered, clutching the sack of food. What did I bury?" "You buried Thomas McDowell," Nachite said. He came to her, and for a moment she thought he might strike her to make her move. Instead, he put his massive hand on her shoulder. "But the man I gave my word to, his name was Tlitzin, Blue Fire. It is what we called him, for the color of his sick eyes. He was not the man you knew. He was better." He gave her a small pouch. "Your husband gave this to me. For you. He said you would know what it meant." Nancy opened it. Inside was not gold, not a jewel. It was a single smooth riverstone, the color of a robin's egg. She remembered. Their first picnic, before the ranch, by the San Pedro River. He had found the stone and given it to her. "For our future," he'd said. "Smooth, calm, blue as the sky we'll live under." He had loved her. That at least had been real. The stone gave her strength. The grief could wait. Survival could not. "My horse," she said, "saddled, but we are not riding out." Nancy looked at him, confused. "But they're coming. They will expect us to run. They will ride us down. They are 5. We are 2. And they are looking for a white woman and me. They will follow our tracks. Then what do we do?" Nachite looked at the dry creek bed, then at her house. "We do not run. We hide. And we burn." He grabbed a lit kerosene lamp from her table. "No!" Nancy screamed. "It is the only way," Nachite said, his voice flat. "A fire? They will think it was a raid. They will think the Apache attacked, killed you, and took me. They will follow the wrong trail. It will buy us time. My home is a pyre," he finished. "It is wood and mud. Your life is what matters. Thomas's life. My word. It is all that matters." He didn't wait for her permission. He smashed the lamp against the wall near her curtains. The oil and flame exploded. The dry wood and cloth went up in a whoosh. "Now," he said, grabbing her arm and the supplies. "We go. To the creek." He dragged her out the back, not to the stable, but to the dry, cracked arroyo that ran behind the house. They scrambled down the 5-foot embankment. "Move. Low and fast. Do not look back," Nachiti ordered. Nancy stumbled, then ran, choking on the smoke and her own tears. The heat was scorching at her back. She did not look back. She ran, following the giant warrior, descending into the shadow of the arroyo as her entire world went up in flames behind her. The arroyo was an oven, the air thick with the smell of their burning. Nachite set a brutal pace. He moved with a low, loping run, his body seeming to flow over the broken rocks and dead brush. Nancy, her lungs on fire, her heart a hammering drum, scrambled to keep up. Her home, 10 years of her life, gone. The smoke was a black plume against the blood-red sunset. They'll see the smoke, she panted, stumbling. "They will," Nachit said without slowing. "They will ride to it. They will find the fire. They will see the tracks of my people, the ones I left." "What?" "I took your mare, Grits. I let her run wild, north. I left tracks, Apache tracks, around the burning house. They will find shod horse tracks, and they will find moccasin tracks. They will believe what I want them to believe, a raid, a struggle, a captive. They will follow the horse, north, into the flats. We go south, into the mountains." He had thought of everything. In the few minutes he'd been there, he had formulated a plan of escape that was as brutal as it was brilliant. They ran for 2 miles, the arroyo twisting and deepening, hiding them from the open plain. When Nancy thought her lungs would burst, Nachit finally stopped. He pulled her into a dense thicket of salt cedar, his hand over her mouth. He didn't move. He didn't breathe. He was listening. Nancy listened too. At first, she heard only her own ragged breath. Then she heard it. Hoofbeats. 5 riders, fast, coming from the west. She saw them through the branches. 5 men, dark shapes against the twilight. They didn't slow. They rode directly for the burning pyre of her home. She saw a big man in the lead, on a tall bay, Silas Croft. They're there, she whispered. Good, Nachit breathed. Let them see the ashes. The men's voices were faint, carried on the wind. Curses, shouts. They were angry. He's there, Nancy whispered, a new cold fear gripping her. Dutch Malone, the man in the red shirt. I've seen him, in Tucson. He bought me a drink once, said he knew Thomas. She had thought nothing of it then. A kindness. Now, it seemed monstrous. He was testing you, Nachit said. Seeing if you knew. Seeing if you were scared. I wasn't, Nancy said, her voice hard. Now I am. Fear is good. It keeps you alive, Nachiti said. Now we move. They will search the house, and when they find no ledger and no bodies, they will follow the tracks I left for them. They didn't run now. They moved with agonizing slowness. Nachite led them deeper into the arroyo, which began to climb, turning into a canyon. The ground became rocks and gravel. Every step was a potential betrayal, a skittering pebble that could echo in the night. They walked for hours. The moon rose, a pale, indifferent eye, casting the landscape in silver and black. Nancy's boots, her sturdy ranch boots, were not made for this. Her feet were screaming. Nachiti, in his soft-soled moccasins, moved like a ghost. He was her shepherd and her captor. Where? Where are we going? She finally asked, her voice a croak. The Dragoon Mountains, he said. My home. The place your husband tried to hide. It is the only place they will not follow. They won't follow? They are 5. In the Dragoons, I am 500. It was a boast, but it was also a fact. The Dragoons were the heart of Chiricahua territory. The U.S. Army had tried for a decade to root them out and failed. Silas Croft and his cutthroats wouldn't stand a chance. But then, a new thought, sharp and cold, struck Nancy. And me? She asked, stopping. What about me? I am not Apache. What will your people do to me? Nachiti turned, his face in the shadow. You are with me. You are under my protection. You carry the word of Tlitsin. Blue fire, she whispered, clutching the river stone in her pocket. He nodded. It is enough. They climbed. The air grew thin and cold. The scrubby desert brush gave way to juniper and pine. Nancy was a flat storage, exhausted creature, but Nachit was in his element. He seemed to draw strength from the rocks, from the elevation. Just before dawn, as the first gray light touched the sky, they came across a different set of tracks. Nancy, walking behind, almost missed them. But Nachit stopped so suddenly she collided with his back. It was like running into an oak tree. What is it? He didn't answer. He knelt, his massive fingers tracing a print in the dust. Cavalry, he said, and the word was a curse. Soldiers? Here? Nancy's heart leaped. We can get help. She made to step forward, to call out. Nachit's arm shot out, barring her way. No. But they're soldiers. They'll protect us from Croft. They will protect you, Nachit said, his voice laced with a bitterness she had not heard before. They will look at me, and they will see a renegade, a giant Apache who has kidnapped a white woman. They will shoot me first and ask questions later. I'll tell them, she insisted. I'll tell them the truth. And what is the truth, Nancy McDowell? He challenged her, his dark eyes flashing. That your husband was a high-level outlaw? That you are carrying a ledger that implicates half the powerful men in Tucson? That you burned your own house down? They will call you a liar. They will call you mad. They will take the ledger, and it will disappear. Silas Croft will walk free, and I will be dead. The cold, hard logic of it hit her. He was right. She was no longer just a settler widow. She was something else, an outcast, an accomplice. They are a patrol, Nachit observed, studying the tracks. 10 riders, a scout and destroy mission. They are not looking for us. They are looking for me, for my people. A new complication. They were trapped, hunted from behind by Silas Croft, hunted from the front by the U.S. Army. We must go around them, Nachit said. We must go higher. He pointed. Up. Toward a sheer rock face that looked impassable. I can't, Nancy breathed, looking at the cliff. I can't. You are not a rancher anymore, Nachit said. He turned, and for the first time, offered her his hand. It was huge, scarred, and steady. You are not a widow. You are a survivor. Now climb. Nancy looked at his hand, then at the impossible mountain, then back at the valley where 2 separate groups of men were hunting them. She took his hand. It was warm. Show me, she said. The next 2 days were a blur of rock, thirst, and fear. The climb was a waking nightmare. Nachit moved like a mountain goat, finding handholds and footholds in what seemed to Nancy to be sheer, smooth rock. He would climb, secure himself, and then lower a length of rope he carried to help her. She was not a burden. She refused to be. She bit back her cries of pain as her hands were shredded, as her boots slipped, as her muscles screamed in protest. She climbed. She saw the iron in his eyes, the reluctant respect, and it fueled her. They bypassed the cavalry patrol, moving along high, narrow ledges where only eagles dared to go. From their perch, they watched the blue-coated soldiers ride through the canyon below, tiny and insignificant. They look so small, Nancy whispered, her voice hoarse. They are, Nachit said, from a distance. Up close, their bullets are very large. They made a cold camp that night, high in a cleft of rock, sheltered from the wind. They had no fire. They ate dry jerky and drank sparingly from their canteens. Nancy was huddled, shivering, her body a map of new aches. Nachite sat apart, staring into the darkness. He seemed to be made of stone, impervious to the cold. Why? Nancy finally asked, the question breaking the silence. Why are you doing this? Your word to a dead man? Is it worth this? Being hunted? Risking everything? Nachita was silent for a long time. The wind howled a low, lonely note around them. Your husband, he began, his voice low, was not the first white man I had met, but he was the first who saw us, not as Apache, not as savages, but as people. He shifted, turning to look at her. In the pale moonlight, his features were carved from granite. When he came to our camp, sick, my son was also sick, the white man's cough. It was taking our children. We had nothing. The agent at the reservation, Mr. Lyman Wilbur, he kept the good medicine for himself, sold it. Nancy's heart ached. She knew of Lyman Wilbur, a good man, a churchgoer. Thomas, Kleidsin. He saw this. He was dying. But he took the last of his strength and the last of his blood money, as you call it. And he did not buy his freedom. He did not buy a doctor. He rode to Tucson one last time. Nancy held her breath. He came back 2 weeks later, Nachit said, almost a ghost. He had 2 mules, loaded, not with gold, with quinine, with blankets, with food. He collapsed at the edge of our camp. He had saved, not all, but many, of our children. He had redeemed himself. My son lived, Nachit said, his voice thick, because of your husband. He touched his knife. This was his. Thomas McDowell's knife. He gave it to me as he was dying. He said, I gave my life to the wrong men. Now I give my knife to the right one. Protect her. He meant you. He meant the ledger. He meant his honor. Nancy was weeping. Silent tears, carving clean paths through the grime on her face. Her husband had not been a simple man. He had not been a good man, but he had died one. My word to him, Nachit finished, is not a burden. It is my life. Now sleep. We have a long day. The next day, they descended. The other side of the Dragoon Range. They were in his territory now. The land was still harsh, but Nachiti was more relaxed, until he wasn't. He stopped, holding up a hand. They were in a narrow canyon, the walls 1,000 feet high. What? Nancy whispered. Tracks, fresh, shod horses. The cavalry? No, Nachit said, his face hardening. Look, he pointed. In the sand, a cigar butt. Fresh. Croft, Nancy breathed. But how? We fooled them. He did not follow the tracks, Nachit said, a new, dangerous respect in his voice. He is smart. He knew a raid would have left bodies. He knew I would not take you north. He knows this land. He knows the passes. He anticipated me. He's ahead of us? No. He is with us. From the ridge above them, a voice echoed. A mocking, gravelly voice. Well, well, Dutch. Look what we got here. The giant and the widow. Nancy looked up. Silas Croft was sitting on his horse on the canyon rim, a rifle resting in the crook of his arm. Beside him, Dutch Malone and the 2 other men she'd seen, the Pike brothers, Jeb and Amos. They were blocked. You led us a merry chase, Nachit, Croft yelled, his voice bouncing off the walls. I'll give you that. Wasting my time. The ledger, Croft, Dutch Malone yelled. Toss it up, and we'll let the lady live. Maybe. Nachit didn't move. He stood, a bronze statue, his hand on the hilt of Thomas's knife. He is lying, Nachit said to Nancy, his voice so low it was just a vibration. I know, Nancy said, her hand finding her own rifle. This is a bad place to die, Apache, Jeb Pike shouted, laughing. We are not dying here, Nachit said. He looked at Nancy. Can you shoot? I can, Nancy said, her voice shaking, but her hands steady on the gun. Good. Do not shoot at them. Shoot at the rock, above Jeb Pike's head, the one that looks like a snake. Nancy saw it, a loose overhang of shale. They will fire back, she said. Yes, and when they do, you will run, as fast as you can, for that cleft in the rock. He pointed 20 yards ahead. And you? I will be right behind you. Nachit, Croft yelled, his patience gone. I'm counting to 3. Now, Nachiti whispered. Nancy raised her rifle. She didn't hesitate. She aimed at the rock and fired. The sound was deafening, multiplied by the canyon. The bullet sparked. The shale cracked. She's shooting! Amos Pike yelled. A shower of rock and shale rained down. It didn't hit Jeb, but it spooked his horse, which reared, screaming. Run! Nachit roared. Nancy ran. Bullets pinged off the rocks around her, whining like angry insects. A piece of her skirt was torn away by a shot. She dove for the cleft, sliding on gravel and dirt, skinning her elbows. Nachit was not behind her. She looked back. He was standing in the open, his bow in his hand. He had an arrow nocked. "Nachit!" she screamed. He loosed the arrow. It was an impossible shot, up at the ridge. It flew, a black streak. Dutch Malone, who had been standing to take careful aim, grunted and clutched his shoulder, the arrow buried deep. He toppled backward off his horse. "You son of a—" Croft roared, firing his pistol, but Nachiti was already moving, bounding toward the cleft, a giant weaving target. A rifle shot cracked from above. Nachiti stumbled. He fell, hard, just at the entrance to their small cave. "No!" Nancy screamed. She scrambled back, grabbing his arm, and dragged him with all her strength into the shallow cover. He was bleeding, a dark, flowering stain, high on his side. I am shot," he said, his voice a mixture of surprise and pain. Outside, the men were shouting, making their way down the treacherous path to the canyon floor. "They are coming, Knox. We are trapped." Nancy looked at the bleeding giant. She looked at the small, leather-bound ledger he'd tucked into his waistband, now stained with his blood. She had run. She had climbed. She had hidden. "No," Nancy McDowell said, grabbing her rifle and checking the load. "We are not trapped. They are." The cleft in the rock was barely a cave. It was a shallow depression, 10 feet deep, offering cover, but no escape. Nachit was leaning against the back wall, his face pale beneath his copper skin. The blood from his side was a steady, dark seep. "The rifle," he gasped, his hand going to the diary in his belt. "The book is safe," Nancy said. Her voice was preternaturally calm. The terror of the last few days had burned away, leaving something cold and hard. "You are not." She ripped a long strip of cloth from her petticoat. "Press this, hard." He took it, his hand, now slick with his own blood, covering hers for a moment. He looked at her, his dark eyes searching. You are a warrior, Nancy McDowell." "I'm a widow," she replied, her voice flat, "and I'm angry." Outside, the shouting continued. "Amos, you and Jeb, get round the bottom. Me. I'm going to flush 'em out." It was Croft's voice. "What about Dutch?" Jeb Pike yelled. "He's dead or dying. Leave him. I want that book." Nancy peeked around the edge of the rock. She could see them, 200 yards down the canyon. Croft was on the ridge, providing overwatch. The two Pike brothers were dismounting, starting to make their way on foot, using the boulders for cover. "Two coming. One on the ridge," she reported. Nachit tried to draw his bow. He grunted, and his arm failed him. I cannot draw." "You don't have to," Nancy said. She took her rifle. "You just have to tell me what to do." He looked at her. "They will separate. One will draw fire. The other will advance. Do not fire at the first man. Fire at the second, the one who thinks he is safe." "Jeb, he's the one who was laughing," Nancy said, her hands steady as she found a firing notch in the rock. "Then aim for him," Nachit said. The canyon fell silent. The Pikes were good. They moved like snakes. "I see one," Nancy whispered. It was Amos Pike, the older one. He darted from one boulder to another. He was 100 yards out. He was drawing her fire. "Wait," Nachiti breathed. Nancy waited. Her pulse was steady. She was back on the ranch, sighting a coyote. Then she saw him, Jeb Pike. He had taken a lower path in the riverbed and was much closer, only 60 yards. He thought he was hidden. He raised his head, looking for his brother. Now, Nachit said. Nancy squeezed the trigger. The boom of the Winchester echoed. Jeb Pike's head snapped back. He didn't make a sound. He just collapsed. "Jeb!" Amos screamed, standing up from behind his rock. It was a mistake. Before Nancy could reload, an arrow appeared. Nachite, his face a mask of gray pain, had managed to knock and draw. He hadn't pulled it to his full strength, but it was enough. The arrow shot from the cave and buried itself in Amos Pike's throat. He gurgled, clawed at the shaft, and fell forward, 2 down. A roar of pure rage from the ridge. You witch!" Silas Croft began to fire, his pistol emptying as fast as he could pull the trigger. Bullets sparked and ricocheted off the mouth of their cave, sending chips of stone flying. Nancy and Nachiti pressed themselves against the back wall. "He is angry," Nachiti gasped. "He's alone," Nancy said. The firing stopped. The silence that returned was heavier, more final. "Croft!" Nancy yelled, her voice raw. "It's over. Your men are dead. Ride away, and you can live." "Live?" His voice echoed back, strained and full of hate. "You think this is about living? That book is my life. It's got names. Senator Roberts, Marshall Keene. I'm not just some outlaw, you stupid woman. I'm a businessman." The confession hung in the air. The ledger wasn't just about his crimes. It was about their crimes. "He will not go," Nachit said. "He will come. He's one man. We are two. I am one-handed," Nachit corrected, "and he is smart." They waited. The sun beat down. The canyon was a trap. "He's gone," Nancy whispered after 10 minutes. "He's ridden off." "No," Nachit said. "He is quiet." Nancy strained her ears. Nothing. Just the wind. And a sound. A scrape. From above. He hadn't gone around. He had climbed. He was directly over the mouth of their cave. Nancy's blood ran cold. He was going to fire straight down into their cover. Nachit had heard it too. He grabbed Thomas's knife from his belt. He looked at Nancy and put a finger to his lips. He pointed at the mouth of the cave. He wanted her to run. A shadow fell over the opening. Silas Croft. He was hanging, one-handed, from a root, his pistol in the other. He had a grotesque grin on his face. "Found you," he hissed. Nancy didn't run. She screamed and lunged, not with her rifle, but at Nachit. She pushed him hard, shoving his wounded body against the far wall of the cave, out of the line of fire. Croft fired. The bullet, meant for Nachit, tore through the fleshy part of Nancy's left arm. The pain was a white-hot flash. She screamed, falling to her knees. Croft, his grin widening, tried to take better aim. He let go of the root to get both hands on his gun. It was a fatal miscalculation. He had expected her to be a victim. He hadn't counted on the giant. Nachit, with a roar that was more animal than man, surged forward. He ignored his wound. He ignored Nancy. He moved past her, and as Croft dropped into the cave, Nachit met him. It was not a fight. It was an execution. Nachit, despite his wound, caught Croft's gun hand, shattering the wrist against the rock wall. The pistol flew. Croft, tough and wiry, pulled a knife. He was fast. But Nachit was faster. Nachit didn't use his own knife. He used his hands. He grabbed Silas Croft by the throat and the belt, and in one fluid, terrible motion, threw him out of the cave. Croft sailed through the air, his scream cut short as he smashed, head first, into the canyon wall opposite. He fell, a broken puppet, and did not move. The silence that fell was total. Nancy was clutching her arm, the blood hot and sticky. Nachit stood at the mouth of the cave, breathing like a winded bull. He was covered in his blood, and hers. He looked at her. You are shot. You are shot too, she panted, a strange, hysterical laugh bubbling in her throat. He staggered, the adrenaline fading. He slid down the wall, his good hand going to his wound. It is done, he breathed. Nancy crawled over to him. She looked at her arm. It was bleeding, but the bone was fine. She looked at his. It was worse. Much worse. Not yet, Nancy said. She grabbed the diary from his belt. It was soaked. This is just the beginning. The sun was a brutal, victorious eye. The canyon was a graveyard. Nancy tore another strip from her petticoat, this one for herself. She bound her arm, the pain a distant throbbing drum. Her priority was Nachit. The bullet, she said, examining his wound. I think it went through. It is clean, he agreed, his voice tight with pain. But it is deep. We have to stop the bleeding. She had no medicine, no tools, only grit. She took the last of their dried apples, mashed them into a poultice, an old rancher's trick to stop bleeding, and packed the wound, front and back. Nachiti hissed, a sound like a great snake, but he did not stop her. She bound it tight with the last of her good cloth. It will hold, she said, more to herself than to him. For a while. He looked at her, his face gray. You saved my life. You took the bullet. You saved mine. You took the fall, she countered. We're even. A small, pained smile touched his lips. We are. Even. Nancy stood, her body screaming. She scavenged. From the Pike brothers, she took canteens, both full of water, and a pouch of jerky. From Silas Croft, she took nothing. She went to Dutch Malone, on the ridge. He was dead. The arrow was in his heart. She found his horse, a strong-looking chestnut, still waiting patiently. She also found their pack mules. They were rich. Not cheat, she said, her voice echoing in the canyon as she returned. They had supplies for a long trip, and she held up a small black metal box. Medicine, laudanum, bandages. He nodded, a look of profound relief. They spent the rest of the day in the shade of the cave. Nancy cleaned and properly dressed both their wounds. They drank. They ate. They rested. What now? Nancy asked as the sun began to dip, painting the canyon walls in hues of purple and orange. The book, Nachit said. His voice was stronger. It's soaked, she said, holding the leather-bound diary. In your blood. Then it is baptized, he said. It must go to Tucson, not to the cavalry, not to the marshal. You mentioned a man, Nancy said, remembering. A journalist? Josiah Reed, Nachite said, at the Tucson Sentinel. He is a small man, with a loud voice. He is not bought. He is the only man who will print the truth. The names, Roberts, Keene, they must be seen. Tucson is a long way, Nancy said. And you're in no shape to ride? We will ride, Nachit said. We have horses. We will ride slow. They will see you, Nachit. A giant Apache riding into town with a wounded settler woman? They'll hang you from the first tree. Nachit looked at his hands. It is a risk, but your word is to protect me, Nancy said, standing. And this book, and yourself. You can't do that if you're dead. She looked at him, the man who had torn her world apart, and then, piece by piece, helped her build a new one. You will not ride into Tucson, she said, her voice final. Nancy. I will, she said. I will ride in. I am just a widow, a victim, rescued from a raid. I will take the book to Josiah Reed. I will tell him everything, the truth. He considered this. It was a good plan, a safe plan. And me? He asked. Where do I go? You will wait, she said. In the mountains. You will heal. And when I am done, I will come and find you. He looked at her, and the distance between them, the chasm of race and culture and pain, seemed to shrink. You will come back? He asked. My home is ashes, Nancy said, touching the small blue river stone in her pocket. My husband is a ghost. My old life is a lie. I am done with that life. She looked at the high, rugged peaks of the Dragoon Mountains, red in the setting sun. I don't know what I am now, she said, but I know I am not the woman you found mending a fence. I will deliver this. For Thomas. For your son. For me. Nachiti reached out, his massive hand, and touched her wounded arm. It was a gesture of respect, a gesture of partnership. Go then, Nancy McDowell, he said, and ride fast. She took the best horse. She took the ledger, wrapped in oilcloth. She took water and food and her rifle. She rode out of Serpent's Pass alone, leaving the giant Apache to watch her go. She did not look back. She rode toward the corruption of the city, but this time she was not running from a shadow. She was the light, and she was coming to burn the rot out. Nancy's old life is over, burned to the ground by the very secrets her husband died to protect. But in the ashes, a new life begins, one of purpose, of danger, and of an unbreakable bond. She rides to Tucson, a lone woman carrying a truth more explosive than dynamite, while the warrior who saved her heals in the mountains, waiting. The ledger will expose senators and marshals, but it will also paint a target on Nancy's back. Will Josiah Reed print the story? And what does a future look like for a settler widow and an Apache warrior? The West is large, but for people like them, it's also impossibly small. Thank you for listening to this Wild West drama. If you are on the edge of your seat, please show your support by hitting that like button. Share this story with a friend who loves a good twist, and most importantly, subscribe to the channel for more original tales of the untamed frontier. Let us know in the comments, what do you think happens when Nancy rides into Tucson?